you doing today? My name is Mary, this is Happilyeveresch, and we are starting off the best and worst of 2020 videos. We're here to wrap it up, and we're just gonna get all of the negativity out of the way, and we are starting off with the books that I found the most disappointing in 2020. Made a video like this, not because I have an issue with them. I honestly find them to be quite interesting videos to hear why people don't like books, but I've never had enough books that I was disappointed or didn't really like, but this year was the year that I had quite a few disappointing reads. I also had some really stellar reads. I don't think it drug my year down at all, but I find so much value in talking about books that we didn't like or books that disappointed us, because it helps us refine what will work for us in the future. So I wanted to have this and to kind of just chat about it. Now, I kind of have two different categories that I'll be talking here. The first books are going to be books that I don't think they are bad books. I can see the merit in them, but they just didn't work for me, and they were a disappointment to me because I know how beloved they are, but they were not so beloved for me. And then the latter part of this video will be books that I just really didn't like and I don't find a lot of merit in, and that's kind of that. So I'd love to know if any of these books are your favorites. Do you love them? Do you agree with me that they weren't great? I love to have all that kind of discussion down below. We're all entitled to different opinions, and that's what makes the human experience so beautiful, is how varied we are. So I'd love to chat about all of that stuff down in the comments, and without further ado, let's just chat about some disappointing books, shall we? So like I said, these first couple are going to be a little controversial. So let's just, no more pandering, let's just get into it. The first, and probably the most disappointing read in 2020 for me, was this Tinderland by William Kent Kruger. Now hear me out. I can see why people like this book, but it just did not work for me. I think that at times it was beautifully written. But I think kind of after sitting with this for a long time, what really didn't work for me was how I could never pinpoint whether the author was writing in reality or not. And I know the author was inspired by Greek myths and some just like epic poems and stories, and was kind of doing a historical fiction, but like modern day writing of that. So it kind of draws inspiration from like the Odyssey and Homer, and it draws inspiration from some of Mark Twain's work, and I see that, but it in the end didn't work for me, and it just, like, the stakes kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it kept becoming more and more unbelievable, and I could never parse out what was like a fishtail or like a big part of the story and what was reality, and the ending was just so much. I was just at the end, I was like, no, absolutely not. So while I see the merits of the story, and there was such beautiful writing, there were lines that I underlined. It has a super memorable prologue. It did not do it for me, and the longer I sit away from it, the more I kind of sour towards it. So oh, I hate saying that. I wanted to love it so much, and I've read some of William Kent Kruger's other work and I enjoyed it, and I plan to read his mystery series, so I'm not giving up on him as an author. This one just was not for me. And that's that on this Tinderland. Gosh, I wanted to love it, but I did not. Keeping in super unpopular opinions, my next book is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. I have read another Fredrik Backman and knew that the writing style wasn't my favorite when I read it, but I heard such great things about Beartown. And while I found the storyline really compelling, and while I enjoyed the characters, Fredrik Backman's writing style is just, I don't think it's for me, and I want to love it so much, but it's very, again, we're gonna kind of see a similarity between William Kent Kruger. It's very like out there and loud, and like the stakes just keep getting higher and higher and higher, and it becomes to a point where it's almost unbelievable for me. I can't empathize with the characters, and I can't sit with them because I don't believe what they're going through. Some of the reactions and the way that they interact with one another, it's just really hard for me to believe it. And so then I'm just not bought in fully. And I know so many people love this book, and I wanted to love it. And there were moments where I'm like, yeah, I'm loving this. I'm tracking with you. But in the end, I had a hard time believing in the story. I just had a hard time truly empathizing with the characters. And there's hard things that happen in the story, super hard things. And I wanted to, but I didn't. I didn't connect with his writing style and the way that he wrote the story. And that is that on that. I know both of those are so beloved, and I just have different opinions, and that's okay. Another disappointing read for me this year was Louise Penny's A Long Way Home. And if you have spent any time on my channel, you might know that I adore Louise Penny's Armand Gamache Three Pines mystery series. I believe this is the 10th book, and I kind of knew from reading reviews that this one was not her best, and it's definitely a transition book in the series. We kind of wrapped up like a 9-book like plot arc in the book before this, and then A Long Way Home is very much a transition book, and it just fell a little flat. And I mean, 1 out of 10 books to not be a favorite from Louise Penny, I'll take it. I'm still going to continue on with the series. I still want to see how she uses this transition book to kind of propel us into maybe a new storyline. I really enjoy her writing. Her characters are so just like friends at this point. Her writing is so cozy and atmospheric, so I absolutely will be continuing on, but this one just did not quite hit the mark for me. And sometimes in some of the other books I've been like, where are you going with this Louise Penny? But she always brings it around with the end, and I just felt like while the ending was fabulous, as always, it wasn't enough to make up for my like not being with her through the whole story. So yes, a little bit of a dud. I understand where some people have said that this is not her best, and I agree. Another book I was disappointed by is Leave the World Behind by Ruam Alam. This was a Book of the Month club pick for me. I knew I was taking a little bit of a gamble. It wasn't a super hype book or one that I was like expecting to love, but I was still hoping to enjoy it more than I did. I think again this is a case of like I didn't mind the story, but the writing style ultimately just wasn't for me, and I didn't jive with it. And I think thinking through a lot of my disappointing reads this year, I'm learning that writing style is super important to me, and it's the writing style is really important for my buy-in to a story, and whether I'm believing the story that you're telling and can like buy into the characters and their lives. Yeah, writing style really matters for me. So even though I think a lot of these books that I've been disappointed by have a good plot, it's just that that writing style hasn't clicked in place for me, or I wasn't a fan of the way the plot line is told. So yeah, this one's kind of a similar thing. I really liked the ending, which I kind of wish that a lot of the middle of the story had been cut out. I think there was a lot of things that weren't necessary, and I talked with someone about how they thought that this would have been a better like novella or short story, and I agree. I think if maybe this had been a short story collection, maybe we could have followed the same event but different people's lives. I could have got on board with that, but yeah, overall the middle bits and the way the kind of plot unfolded and was written just wasn't for me. All right, and now we're starting to march towards books that I had more of a dislike for, and so kind of right in the middle of like disappointing reads and books I really didn't like, we have My Wife Said You May Want to Marry Me by Jason Rosenthal, and I debated on whether or not to include this one here because it is a memoir, which is so hard to rate memoirs, but it's also about a memoir of the author's wife passing away from a very terrible terminal illness, and it's really hard to you know, judge a work like that, but I think I wanted to still include it because I really feel like this book was written because of his wife and because of her work and like what she did, and I don't know if this book added a lot of like, new information past like what had already been written in like New York Times essays and columns. A lot of times it felt like Jason just like thanking people in his life, which I can appreciate, and that's amazing that he has so many people to be grateful for, but I felt like what I was told I was gonna get just was not it, and I probably could have gotten all that information from like watching the TED Talks and reading the New York Times articles. So that didn't sit super well with me. And then also I just felt like there was so much like privilege in this book, and that wasn't explored at all, and that was just really hard for me. It was like, my life is perfect and everything is great, and there was something about it that just did not sit well with me, to the point that I felt compelled to include it in this video. And so, yes, it's hard to judge someone's memoir because it is so personal, but I guess when you are putting it out there for people to consume, as reviewers, like, get to do that. And I think that had I bought this book, I would be a little frustrated because so much of the information and the story has been told in other formats. So that one was definitely disappointing. And I honestly, like, loved the parts where he was talking about Amy and her story, but that was such a little bit of it. And so, yes, very disappointing. And honestly, the longer I sit away from it, the more it kind of disappoints me, to be frank. Right, and for some books that were just not great for me at all. These are books that I didn't really like the plot, I didn't really like the characters, I didn't really like the writing style. They were just overall very disappointing reads. The first one is In the Unlikely Event by Judy Blume. I was a bloomer as a child. I loved her books. I loved, like, all of her little series. They were just ones that I totally fell into, and so I was hoping to love her adult novel, and I just did not. It felt like so many things were going on, so many different perspectives, and I could never nail down, like, what the point was. And it felt like 3 different novels, like, just being, like, smashed together into one. I think it needed to be edited better. I think the plot line needed to be refined more. And it just, yeah, it wasn't great read for me, and I would not recommend it. And the next 3 are like mystery, thriller-y type books. And while that is probably my favorite genre of fiction, I'm learning that I have very particular taste with it. And so the first one that was very disappointing to me, it's a series I won't be continuing with, is The Child Finder by Renee Dinfield. I'm learning that I'm not a huge fan of, like, missing children's perspectives, like, mystery thrillers. I struggled with believing the perspective of the child that she was writing from. The whole premise of this series I just don't think is for me, because our detective lady is a child finder. She's finding these missing children, and it just didn't, the plot line didn't work for me. But more than that, I didn't really love the writing style. I didn't really love our main character, and I feel like you kind of need to enjoy your main detective character to enjoy a whole series about them. So yeah, this one definitely I won't be continuing on. I unhauled it. Not my detective mystery series. Next we have The Black House by, sorry, I didn't write the author names. It's Peter something. You'll see the picture here. I did not like this mystery series. I think it's a trilogy. It's set in Scotland, I believe. The one thing I liked about it was how atmospheric the setting was, but other than that, I didn't care for the way the story was told. I didn't care for the flashbacks. The ending I detested. I hated how he dealt with the whole, like, situation at the end. I did not like this one at all. Yes, it got a very low rating from me. It was one of the first books I read this year, one that I had had on my shelves for a really long time, and I got rid of it and will not be reading any more from the author or any more in that series. And then last but certainly not least, one that I wasn't expecting to love by any means. I thought it was just going to be a fun romp, but I disliked it so much. I did not like the writing style. I thought that the plot line was just insanely unbelievable. I felt like it was just the same couple chapters over and over and over again. I did not like this book, and that is Me Back by B.A. Paris. I have read another one of her books, and it was so much fun. It was like a perfect, like a little scary, but kind of light thriller. I don't read a lot of thrillers, but it was just kind of my perfect, like, gobble it up niche book. And so I don't know if I'll try any more of B.A. Paris because of how much I disliked this book, but from looking on the ratings on Goodreads, it looks like this is her most unpopular book that she's written, so we'll see. Maybe I will give her another go because I did enjoy some other of her work, but this one, I would not suggest reading it. I would say if you're interested in B.A. Paris, try something else. I'm trying to think what I read by her. I'll put a picture here because I can't remember the title, but it was fun thriller. I didn't love it, but it was exactly what I wanted it to be. Bring Me Back was, I should have DNF'd it. That's probably the moral of the story on all three of these mysteries, is I should have DNF'd them because I kind of knew by the midway point that they weren't going to be for me. So really my own fault. So there was the negative thoughts out of the way, and we can go into some more positive reviews for the rest of my kind of 2020 wrap-up videos. But again, I do find a lot of value in discussing books that are disappointing or books that weren't quite for us, because I think that information is just as valuable as what we did like about a book. So take it for what you will. Please like this video if you enjoyed, and please subscribe if you want to see more bookish content from me. And yeah, let's look forward to some superlatives and some honorable mentions and some best ofs of 2020 to come. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.